This video is sponsored by Squarespace. The PS5 is 2.5 years old, so let's check in on it and look at the future. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. Summer is officially here, so I thought it'd be a good time to kind of round up where we're at with the PS5 and also look to the future and let you know what you can be excited for the rest of 2023 and beyond. This video is going to be broken up into 3 sections. First, all the hardware we can expect between now and probably the end of the year or early in 2024. Then I'm going to talk about the showcase that's rumored to happen towards the end of the year. And then finally, I'm going to let you know what games you can look forward to between now and December of 2023. So let's jump into the hardware, because as of right now, we have a weirdly standard set of consoles and accessories, but by the end of the year, it looks like things are really gonna change. So let's start out with something that hasn't been announced yet, but we all know is coming. The PS5 Slim, the PS5 Gen 2, the PS5 Detachable Disc Drive Edition, whatever you wanna call it, it's basically confirmed to come by the end of this year, because it's like a rumor from Tom Henderson, who's pretty much always right with his rumors. I said pretty much just in case there's one out there he's been wrong on, but I'd give him like a 9 out of 10 track record on predicting PS5 hardware and even software for other publishers. So I think he's pretty trustworthy. The real reason this console exists is so Sony can save money on making the PS5. So if you just got a PS5, finally you got this $500 God of War Ragnarok bundle and you're like, dang, I should have waited for the PS5 Slim. It's not gonna run any better if all the rumors are to be believed. And unlike previous generations, it's not really gonna be that big of a visual departure from what we already have. Like if you look at the PS4 to the PS4 Slim, that was a major redesign of the console. This is going to look pretty much the same if all the rumors are going to be believed, because the only difference is they're going to make one console, just the digital edition, but the disc drive is going to be detachable. So what they're going to do is they're going to put a little like clip on the side of the console underneath the side plate, and you're going to be able to pop that disc drive on, pop on the disc hole side plate. That felt weird. And the only real difference is there's going to be an added USB-C port on the back and a hole in the back of the side plate for you to kind of snake the little USB-C cord through so that the disc drive will function. It's cheaper for Sony to make this one because they're going to have one assembly line. It's going to be the same PS5 coming off of that assembly line, and then it's going to get split out. They're going to put one in a box without a disc drive and one in a box with a disc drive. The unfortunate thing though is that if you currently have a digital PS5, it's not going to work with this new disc drive, which really sucks because you need that high-speed USB-C port that's going to be on the back of it. Still, I think Sony could have figured out a way to make the old digital model work, but then it would not be an internal disc drive, it would be an actual external one, and they'd have to make it look sort of inelegant, maybe like the HD DVD drive that looked like a little Xbox 360 back in the day. That's kind of what my mind is conjuring up here when I think about one that would be compatible with the current digital model, but still, it is a cool thing to have a modular console again, because back in the day, that was the coolest thing ever. With the original Xbox 360, I got the arcade edition. It came with a memory card and that's it. I realized that I couldn't save more than like 5 game saves to it, and I was like, shoot. So I went out and I bought a hard drive, popped that onto the top, and then I ended up getting the Wi-Fi module, and my house got Wi-Fi, and that thing looked pretty cool by the end of the day. So I'm always excited for stuff like that to come back, just mainly because of nostalgia. But the PS5 Slim, like I said, hasn't been announced yet, so it'll probably be announced by the end of the year. I'll talk more about that in the showcase section, but the biggest rumor we have on its release date is September. I'm gonna pick one up obviously as fast as I can just so I can do a video on it, but yeah, if I didn't have this PlayStation YouTube channel, I would probably be sticking with my launch PS5 because it still looks really good with those original D-brand dark plates. The next piece of hardware that we have to look forward to, but I don't think is coming in 2023, is the PS5 Pro. So just like with the PS4 generation, we're getting a mid-gen refresh of the PS5, and it looks like it's actually going to be a pretty sizable upgrade over the current PS5. But unlike the last generation where the PS4 was held a little while, and so by the time it came out, it was pretty underpowered. The target there was 1080p 30, but you know, it never really hit that with a lot of games after the first year. The PS5 was able to come out when it was supposed to come out, and it's still feeling pretty powerful. But as we've seen with all these games coming out like Jedi Survivor, Final Fantasy 16, and a bunch of others, 30 FPS is once again becoming the standard for PS4 games, because now developers are focusing on PS5 only games that really push the hardware to its limits. So the concession that has to be made is running the game at 30 FPS in quality mode. We are of course still getting these performance modes, but as we've seen with both Final Fantasy 16 and Jedi Survivor, performance does not necessarily mean good performance, because neither of those games run at a locked 60 FPS. And I'll throw the Callisto Protocol in the mix as well. If you played on quality mode, it was a pretty locked 30, but if you used performance mode, it was like 40 to 60. And I know people love to say, oh, use your VRR on your TV, it makes everything better. It doesn't make that wild swing better. It makes like 50 to 60 tolerable at best. So yeah, what I'm thinking is that the target for the PS5 Pro would realistically be 60 FPS gaming at like 1440p upscaled to 4K. I genuinely don't think you're gonna get a console for anything less than like $700 or $800 that can run games at an actual native 4K 60. But if we get to where we were at the PS5's launch, where we were getting games that ran at pretty much native 4K 30 FPS with ray tracing turned on, and we have that standard met with next gen games, and then 1440p upscaled to 4K running at 60 FPS for the performance mode, that seems like a really good achievable target to hit. And I would guess that maybe they'll drop the PS5 Slim to around $400 for the disc model, maybe even $350 for the digital model, and then sell the PS5 Pro for around $500. That's like my true wish here, like fingers crossed. What I really think is going to happen is that the PS5 is going to stay at $500, and then the PS5 Pro will be $600. People will complain about it, but ultimately they'll buy it because getting that performance out of a console is awesome. So yeah, I'm glad that they're spacing this out so I don't have to spend like $1,100 at the end of this year. I'm gonna have to spend it eventually, but I'll be able to space it out over the course of a year, which is preferable. The next piece of hardware we can look forward to is one that makes sense from a business standpoint, but is definitely one I need to be sold on a little bit more. That's the Project Q. So back in the day, Sony would make the PSP. It would be the awesome like PS2 on the go. You could play Battlefront 2, you could play Killzone Liberation, you could play 2 full God of War games. They had Daxter, they had Ratchet and Clank, Size Matters is what I think it was called. The point is, we had pretty much the same parity of games coming out on the PSP around the same timing as they were on the PS2, and it was freaking awesome. I loved it. Then we got the PS Vita, which was trying to be a PS3 on the go, and I would say Sony really achieved that goal with a lot of games like Killzone Mercenary, Uncharted Golden Abyss, Little Big Planet PS Vita, Tearaway, Wipeout 2042. The list goes on and on of really good AAA Vita games, but as time went on, people weren't really buying that thing, mainly because I think at least the price was pretty high, and also having their own proprietary memory card to stop hacking, that's what ultimately killed the device in my opinion. So now, even though they're watching the world around them move back towards handhelds with the Nintendo Switch, the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, everyone's loving playing these console quality games, ironically PS4 games on the go, Sony's not really going to do that anymore. They're going to say, hey, we're going to take an Xperia phone, we're going to glue on 2 halves of a DualSense controller and call it a day. I think the experience will be pretty good if you've got a good home network. Like I have a Wi-Fi 6 mesh around my apartment here, and I'm moving it to my house where I'll have gigabit internet. I think I'll be able to remote play pretty reliably from my PS5, but I can of course just test that on the Steam Deck, which is awesome. I don't have to wait for Project Q. But yeah, if you're like out and about and you're trying to connect at like Starbucks or something, I don't think you're gonna have a great time streaming your PS5 games to this thing. Also, price is definitely the biggest factor here. They're putting a pretty solid screen on it, and the stuff that's in the DualSense, like the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, that's expensive tech. So either Sony will have to take a loss on this thing, or they'll be totally tone deaf and just sell it at a premium, which I don't think will work out very well. The sweet spot price for the Project Q, I think, is like $200, maybe $250, but either way, it needs to be sub $300 to really catch on with people. And even then, I don't think it's going to be a huge hit, but I'm happy to be wrong. I want PlayStation to succeed. And then the final thing we're getting this year is a new pair of gaming earbuds from Sony. I am all in on these. I love earbuds. I buy way too many of them. The Razer Hammerhead Hyperspeeds for PS5 are pretty cool because they come with a dongle. I want that from Sony though, because Sony headphones fit more comfortably and also sound much better than the Razer Hammerhead. So I'm fingers crossed that those are going to be at an affordable price. And the cool thing about them is that they should also work with your phone and on PC. I really hope that they can use Bluetooth and the dongle at the same time, but because they're earbuds, I'm not quite sure. So yeah, going into 2023 and I guess 2024 with the PS5 Pro, hardware is looking pretty cool. The only thing I'm kind of iffy on is, of course, the Project Q, but most of the stuff. So I'd say 3 out of 4 things are genuinely exciting to me. Next up, let's talk about this showcase that's rumored to happen by the end of the year. I think this is a slam dunk, like 100% going to happen, and I think Sony cannot afford to really have a good showcase like they did with the last one. They need to have a blow your balls off, as is always said, showcase where they announce new stuff we haven't seen before, but also get us hyped for what's coming out. So as far as this showcase goes, I think it's going to open up with not only the oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze again. Okay. So as far as this showcase goes, I think it's a hard lock for either late August or early September, and it'll open up once again with a Spider-Man 2 launch trailer, and then they'll build up to a special edition PS5 Slim console. That's either going to be like Venom edition, or maybe it'll have replaceable faceplates so you can switch between Peter Parker Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and Venom. I think Sony needs to do that because we haven't had any special editions since the PS5 came out. Now you can actually get PS5s, and if they're stockpiling the PS5 Slim, getting it ready to go for this fall, nothing would be cooler than launching it alongside a Spider-Man edition console. And if it's going to keep the visual design of the current PS5, they could release it with the all 3 included sets of faceplates, a controller, and the game, and they could sell that for a pretty penny, and I think people would buy it, mainly because that PS4 Pro that was Spider-Man edition is one of the most popular PS4s ever made. Other than that, I think it's about time we see Ghost of Tsushima 2. It might be a little bit early, but Sucker Punch is usually pretty quick with their games, and they're technically sound across the board, so I don't think it's that outlandish to expect to see something new from them, especially considering that we know there's a Ghost of Tsushima movie coming from Chad, who directed John Wick 4, so I'd really love to see more on that. I know that they shouldn't be showing movie trailers at a gaming event, but unlike Gran Turismo and Twisted Metal, I honestly think this Ghost of Tsushima movie is going to be very good, so that's something where I think they could pair up the movie trailer and a game trailer. But if they're only going to show one, it's just the game trailer. I don't want to see just a standalone Ghost of Tsushima movie trailer unless you're telling me about the game, or at the very least a PC release for the game. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see some more live service games, maybe some mobile games, but we could also see some PSVR 2 games to get us really excited. But I want to see what Ben Studio's working on. I want to see what Naughty Dog is working on now that The Last of Us Factions looks like it's going to be canceled, which really sucks. I want to see more of these Horizon games that Guerrilla is working on. I'd love to get a PC release date for Horizon Forbidden West, and I'd love to see some actual gameplay from some of the games they announced at the last showcase, or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Obviously, I think that'd be a great game to have showcased at a PlayStation showcase. But the biggest thing I really want to see, other than a special edition console, is new games we haven't heard about before. It seemed like going into this recent one, we knew most of the games that were going to be announced, and I think that played into the muted reception to it. But yeah, I mean, my like pie in the sky wish is that we get to see Resident Evil 9 or Resident Evil 5 Remake at least teased, because both of those games are most assuredly in the works, and I want to know what's going on with them, especially considering that Capcom's got on a once-a-year cadence with the Resident Evil series. So yeah, once again, I think this showcase will happen around the end of August, the beginning of September, to lead us into the fall and really build up the PlayStation holiday season. And now let's get into the third section, which is just a huge list of games that are coming out this year that I think are worth paying attention to, starting with Exo Primal on July 14th. Now, normally this is a game I really wouldn't care about, but since Capcom's been on its renaissance with games like Monster Hunter Rise, all of the Resident Evil remakes, all of the Resident Evil mainline entries with 7 and 8, and then of course Devil May Cry 5, there's just been so many good Capcom games. I mean, how did I forget Street Fighter 6? I really think this could be a cool game, and I want to see what Capcom can do with a shooter that's sort of like a live service. It's not something I'm going to devote all my time to, but it's something I'd like to play with my buddies for a weekend. Remnant 2 comes out July 25th. Remnant from the Ashes is one of the most underrated games of the last generation, in my opinion. It's basically a third-person shooter Souls-like that has full co-op. I played it with my friend Grayson back in the day, and we had an absolute blast getting through that. So I'm excited to see what they're doing with Remnant 2, and my buddy Jake Baldino played the game and told me he really liked it. So I'm really excited to see that on July 25th. My friends over at Gun Media are releasing their new game on August 18th, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This one's a little different from Friday the 13th, A, because it looks a lot better, it looks a lot more polished, but B, they only have the rights for the first Texas Chainsaw movie, but it looks like they're stretching the rights in that IP to the absolute limit, like only being able to work with one movie. They've captured the tone, they've worked really hard on sound design. I think people were really positive on it coming out of the open player test that they had a couple weeks ago. I got a little bit of time in on it and I really enjoyed it. This is going to be a cheaper game like Friday the 13th, but I am extremely excited for it. And then on October 17th, we're getting Alan Wake 2. I'm obviously super excited for that game, especially seeing how survival horror it is compared to the old Alan Wake games and even Control. And then of course on October 20th, we have Spider-Man 2, which I think is going to be PlayStation's game of the year. So yeah, this gen definitely took a little bit to get going, but it looks like it's going to be one of those mythic 2007 level years where we just get banger after banger. I mean, even starting the year off with Hogwarts Legacy, Dead Space, and Resident Evil 4, and now Final Fantasy 16 and Diablo 4, we had a good first half, but the second half of the year is looking almost even better. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you're looking to build a new website in 2023, Squarespace is the only tool you need. With their fluid engine, it's never been easier to create your own website. You can start with an awesome template and then customize it from top to bottom, or just keep it as is, and no matter what, your website's gonna work perfectly across desktop and mobile. Squarespace also makes it super simple to set up an online store as well. Whether your product is digital, physical, or a service, Squarespace gives you the tools you need to get started and keep things moving. And of course, their analytics tools are second to none. You can gain info like where site visits and sales are coming from, and you can analyze which channels are most effective. And then you can take that data and improve your website by building a marketing strategy around your top keywords or your most popular products and content. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/PSReady for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Huge shout out once again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.